in the Talmud commandment, right?
All right.
But still great.
I think we were
She's
here.
probably
Here we
starting
go.
out. Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome, Doc. Great. Okay. All right. Verses 6 and 7. Vayavo alehem. I just realized I don't have my laser pointer on. Sorry. Yosef ba boker vaya otaham vehinam zoafim. When Yosef came alehem unto them baboker in the morning. Vaya. Okay, so I think it is when Yosef came to them in the morning. Vaya, and he saw otam them vehinam, and behold, they were zoafim. They were zoafim. So usually this would mean like very angry, right? But in context, it's got to mean something else, right? And Ibn Ezra comments that sad. They were sad or agitated, as is the meaning of this word, zapo, its rage in, and the sea ceased from its raging. Mi zapo, in the book of Yonah, chapter 1, verse 15. Verse 7. Vayishal et sarisei Pharaoh asher ito v'mishmar beit Adonai v'lemor madua pneichem ra'im hayom. So Yishal, he asked the Sarisei Pharaoh, the eunuchs or the officials of Pharaoh, Asher, who were Ito, with him, Vemishmar, in custody of the Beit Adonai, the house of his master. So I think this goes back to what Doc was asking. Was he still under Potiphar? And here we do. And this actually builds up the concept that I mentioned, that the dungeon actually belonged to Potiphar, right? Because it says the house of his master. Right? Lemor, saying, Madua penechayim ra'im hayom. Why are your countenances, literally your faces, ra'im? Why are they evil? Hayom, today. And I've been trying to reinforce so that you guys understand. Let me just point out again the word ra, ra. The gloss meaning of this, the basic meaning of ra, people usually learn it as evil, right? Evil. And I've been talking with Dr. Dwayne about this in the Messianic chat. We have t.me/Messianic chat. If you guys want to join the conversation, Messianic chat. And I was talking to him about this. We had a little bit of a back and forth, that in the verses in the Bible that says that God brings the evil, right, etc. Or we have, for example, an evil spirit from the Lord, right? The spirit goes and torments Shaul HaMelech, right, King Shaul. So I was pointing out that it shouldn't be understood in the modern sense as evil, right? It's really bad, right? So it means bad from the point of view of us, of a person, right? So, for example, you might get confused and think that Hasatan, the Satan, is evil, right? When really that's an office, the adversary serving God, right? But from our perspective, it's bad. It's bad for us. And the point that Dwayne had was that he understands it in the Victorian English way, because the King James English way, right? So apparently in King James English, evil used to just mean bad. It didn't mean like today. When I say that is evil, right? I'm making a moral judgment, right, with colloquial English. If I say it's evil, it's evil. It's against God, right? It's against the Torah, etc., right? It's evil to eat shrimp, right? I'm saying it's against God, right? Not just that it's bad, it's evil, right? Okay. But that's not really what this word means. In some contexts, it does mean evil like that. But in other contexts, it means just bad, right? So he's not saying, I intentionally said evil to kind of draw this point out. So he's not saying your faces are evil, Hayom, today. He's saying they look bad, right? Like something's wrong. Something's wrong. Let me just see if there's any comments or questions. Yeah, Dr. Vera says maybe Zapon means agitated or disturbed since it is the first time they dream such. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, and they also they they've been in prison for a while, right? And clearly this time the dreams were worse than they usually were, right? They slept not as well as they usually did. So So it makes sense in context that we have to draw out something other than just angry, right? You have a scary dream. Are you like, grrr? Are you like angry the next day? I'm so mad. I had that confusing dream. Makes me mad. Oh, maybe there's some people out there. I don't know, personality disorder types or something. It makes them mad, but clearly it doesn't mean mad here, right? Yeah, maybe vexed would be good. I'm so vexed. Oh, you remember in the Gladiator when the Pansy Emperor he says it vexes me. I'm very vexed. I was laughing so loud at the movie theater, and nobody else laughed. It was so awkward.
No Ojo, no Ojo.
Hayom today. He's saying they look bad, right? Like something's wrong. Something's wrong. Let me just see if there's any comments or questions. Yeah, Dr. Vera says maybe Zapon means agitated or disturbed since it is the first time they dream such. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, and they also they they've been in prison for a while, right? You know, and clearly, this time the dreams were worse than they usually were, right? They slept not as well as they usually did. So, so it makes sense in context that we have to draw out something other than just angry, right? You have a scary dream. Are you like, grrr? Are you like angry the next day? I'm so mad. I had that confusing dream. Makes me mad. Oh, maybe there's some people out there. I don't know, personality disorder types or something. It makes them mad, but clearly it doesn't mean mad here, right? Yeah, maybe vexed would be good. I'm so vexed. Oh, you remember in the Gladiator when the Pansy Emperor, he says, "It vexes me. I'm very vexed." I was laughing so loud at the movie theater, and nobody else laughed. It was so awkward. In the Gladiator, when the Pansy Emperor, he says, "It vexes me. I'm very vexed." I was laughing so loud at the movie theater, and nobody else laughed. It was so awkward. In the Gladiator, when the Pansy Emperor, he says, "It vexes me. I'm very vexed." I was laughing so loud at the movie theater, and nobody else laughed. It was so awkward. In the Gladiator, when the Pansy Emperor, he says, "It vexes me. I'm very vexed." I was laughing so loud at the movie theater, and nobody else laughed. It was so awkward. In the Gladiator, when the Pansy Emperor, he says, "It vexes me. I'm very vexed." I was laughing so loud at the movie theater, and nobody else laughed. It was so awkward. In the Gladiator, when the Pansy Emperor, he says, "Thank you for that." Okay. Was it a long time that it was no audio? Just type. How long was it? How long were we out? Oh. Okay. Okay. So we'll just repeat this part here. So Vayomuru Eliv Chalom. They said unto him, Chalom Chalamnu, a dream we dreamed. Ufoter ein oto, but an interpreter is not with it, right? And this is the word for interpreter. Occupations oftentimes are the vowels o, e with the root, right? So foter is someone to patar, to interpret, right? Sarna, the modern scholar, chimes in that there is no one here in prison, right? There's no interpreters that we have access to. And what I was sharing, what you guys couldn't hear, sorry, I have my, I purchased from America a new microphone, right? The other one was broken and not fixable. It's kind of a, there's part of, these are great mics, but there's part of them that's a bad design. And what is that background noise I'm getting? This one? Yeah, I'm not sure if this one was used. It's not as good as the one I had before that was new, but I'm hearing some background noise. But the and so I have my mute button again. So I muted it when I coughed. I think I forgot to turn it off. That was my fault. Sorry. So Halamnu, so we dreamt a dream and there's nobody to interpret it. Now, the dream interpreters in Egypt, they were not wheeler dealers, right? These were not like soothsayers just making stuff up. There was an actual science in Egypt. They she blinded me with science. There was an actual science where they had books talking about different kinds of dreams, what they meant. And I'll talk more about this next week when we get into Pharaoh's dreams. But we see that Adonai very cleverly, he's aware of their science, and so he confounds their science. He intentionally gives dreams that the interpreters cannot interpret, right? They're unable to interpret. And so I think that might be what happened here. I think, these were rich guys. I think probably even in prison, their reach could probably summon. In Egyptian, they're called the Shesh Parach, right? The scribes of the house of life, right? These are the ones who interpreted dreams. I think he could have summoned a shesh, a scribe of Parach, the house of life, to interpret. And so when they're saying Folterein Oto, there's not an interpreter for it. I think what they mean is there's not an interpreter who's able to interpret it, right? So it could be either way, right? I like this one because this shows God, again, intentionally sending dreams that Yosef will be able to interpret, right? Because he's depending on Hashem and he's a smart boy and he studied a lot of things from his father, but that these pagan dream interpreters will not be able to get. It doesn't fit their protocol. Not that they would give the right dream. I'm not saying their science is correct. Oftentimes science is wrong. 50 years later we find out, oh, that was wrong, right? But people put so much stock into it today whenever they seem to have a conflict with religious stuff. Okay, let me see. Everything okay now? You're hearing okay now, right? Alan says maybe I should try made in China. I did. This one that I was using for a while, I got this on Shopee. This was a made in China one. Not up to snuff. So I think I know what the issue is with it. I think really it's just getting the background noise, right? I have the gain turned way down, but I think we can, when we turn down the volume, it'll be better. Okay. All right. Vayomer Alehem Yosef. So Yosef said unto them, Halo Elohim is not to God, meaning belonging to God. The lamed here, this is showing possession, not demonic possession, something like this, but it's showing ownership, right? So oftentimes, this is how we express ownership. So he's saying, in this this is like the upside down question mark in Spanish, right? That's what this guy is. So this is telling us a question. He's asking a rhetorical question. Hello, is there not Lelohim belonging to God? The Pitronim, the interpretations, do not interpretations belong like to but God? Showing, and they would have understood this as the gods, right? It's kind of interesting. Oftentimes, this is how we express ownership. But of course, he believes only in the one. So he's saying, it's a bit ambiguous in Hebrew. This is like the upside down question mark in Spanish. Saparu, this is related to the word sefer. Right, you guys see that? So this is telling us a question. Samech, he's asking a rhetorical question. Reish. Hello, is there not Lelohim belonging to God? Or book, right? So the verb sipel means to tell, like to tell a story or something. So you can kind of see the connection between they would have understood sefer and sipel, right? So here's a verb, saperu, that's a command to all of them. Tell, na, please. They're official, so he's saying please. And this is what I recommend you guys, those of you who like to try to pray in biblical Hebrew, or maybe you say some prayers, put na after your word. Yeah? Na. Say please. Don't be like sometimes people get a little bit crazy in their prayers, right? Do this, Lord, and do that, and heal that one. And it's like commanding God, right? Forgetting that he's actually the master of the universe. So you you say please. Yeah. Saparuna li to me. Verse 9. Vaisaper, so then related or told Sar Hamashkim, the chief of the butlers, et halamo, his dream, le Yosef, to Joseph. Vayomar lo, and he said to him, Bachalomi vehine gefen lefanai. In my dream, check it out, there was a vine before me. The sage Or HaChaim, which means the light of life, he comments on this word, why this choice of Bachalomi, in my dream? Since he had dreamt the interpretation of his companion's dream, remember we talked about that midrashic idea? He now emphasized what he had seen in his own dream. That's why he's bothering to say, in my dream. I mean, clearly, if he just starts talking, you don't need the in my dream, right? So I dreamt, right? But instead he's saying in my dream. So the dream I had, not the interpretation I was given of the other dream, i.e. the dream he had dreamt concerning himself. So Shoshana asks, what about be Adonai for please, Lord? Yes, that's a great question. So this is something we learned from Moshe Rabbeinu. I'm glad you remember that. That's very nice. So I'll put that on the screen for anyone who wants to do this. This is usually for very severe prayers, right? So we have B, B, right? Okay, so here it is in Hebrew, B, and then here we have transliteration, B. This is kind of like, please, right? Like Moshe says, B, send somebody else, right? So it's kind of very, very emphatic. Na is the usual please. So you don't have to every prayer say B, right? If you do, then B loses its power, right? You're praying for life and death. You're praying for healing, right? Maybe it's a desperate situation and the sickness seems really bad. So you're praying for healing for you or a loved one or a pet or something. B is very appropriate then, right? To say B, right? It's a very severe situation, right? We want to use words the way they're intended so they don't lose their meaning, right? So that's a great question. B does mean please, but it's like a severe please. By the way, don't try this in modern Hebrew. It doesn't exist anymore. Not that way. But we like to pray in biblical Hebrew, right? It's I think it's special to pray in the language of the prophets. Let's see, any other comments? All right, verses 10 and 11. Verse 10. So he's still talking about his story, right? He's still relating his story. Uvagefen shlosha sarigim. Now, in the vine, there were three, shlosha sarigim. A sarig is like a tendril, right? Like a piece going off from the vine, right? Vehi cheforachat aleta nitzah. Okay. Now, that's a sariga, as it blossomed, as farachat, as it blossomed from parach. Parach, literally, the verb means to break out, right? To break out. So you could have a mountain breaking out from the crust of the earth, right? Or you could have these sorts of things. Anything that's bursting out, bursting forth. But this is also used in horticulture with the process of blossoming, right? Blossoming. It's starting to open up, right? So as it blossomed, alata, it went up, right? So it's blossoming, it's going up, went up from it, nitza, it's flower. Nates is a flower, right? So it's the bud is opening up, and then the flower comes up. This is what he saw. That's what the Torah is explaining there. The Rashbam comments, it had barely budded. This is Karasik's translation of Rashbam. When out came its blossoms, right? So it's like instantaneous. This is the normal sequence. It had brought forth sprouts, produced blossoms, and borne almonds in Numbers 17, verse 23. Kimchi comments on this part, the alata nitza. The unripe grapes suddenly ripened until they were fully matured fruit. The fruit of the grapevine is not called anavim. This is how we say grapes in Hebrew, anavim. He's saying you can't call it anavim until it is fully matured, right? So when they're sour, I think that's navush, right? It means like a sour fruit, right? So it gets the title anavim only when it's ripe. Okay, and then we continue on. The reason Kimchi is talking about ripening is the next part of verse 10 says hifshilu. So they ripened. What ripened? Eshkoloteha. It's eshkolot. It's an eshkol is a cluster, right? And this is a nice word to remember when you're explaining to somebody about the word echad, right? Echad. Echad, as in Hashem, when we say the Shema, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, we say Echad means he's united, right? Yes, it means one, but it's different than like an inseparable unity, Yachid, right? Rashi, in one of his commentaries, laments that it doesn't say Yachid, right? Because that would put to rest these certain emanations from God, the idea of emanations from God, or different persons, or whatever you want to call that, right? So it doesn't say Yachid, it says Echad. Now, Echad is the same word that we have used with, in Genesis it says, Vayhi erev, vayhi voke yom echad, and it was an evening, and it was a morning, yom, a day, echad, a united day. That's what makes up day, right? Or we have later that man shall cleave to a wife and they become basar achat. It's from the same thing. They become a united flesh, right? Or we have this word here, eshkol. Eshkol is a cluster. And you can say eshkol achat. That's just a feminine of echad, right? So a cluster of grapes. So there's many, many grapes there, but it's still echad. It's a combination of those things. It's united. And this is fair game. My rabbi, back where I grew up, he showed me an Orthodox Siddur from England that he got when he went on sabbatical there for a year. He went to Cambridge on sabbatical, and he brought back this Siddur. He showed me. I thought I'd find it interesting. In the translation from the Hebrew, from the Shema, it says, "Hear, O Israel, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is united." So that's very interesting that the British Orthodox Siddur said united. All right. Anavim, grapes. Verse. Oh, by the way, I want to see this one that I have here. Hivshilu here. That's marked. I want to point out something about this. So there's a group, I can't remember who they are. It's a Hebrew Roots group. You know, the guy's pretty charismatic. He means well. It's got the number 9 in their name, I think, like 919 Ministries or 99. I don't know. Maybe somebody can help me in the chat what it's called. Anyway, these guys, oftentimes they just make terrible mistakes because they don't understand the sages, you know, and they'll just they'll pick and choose something and they'll put it up there and see, this shows that we can eat this way, or this shows that we can do that, right, you know, and they're dealing with some kind of way about eating meat. I can't remember what it was. Was it about the meat and milk? Anyway, I can't remember. Anyway, something about meat, and they use this word bashal to make their point, right? They're misborrowing from, I think, kimchi it was. It's been a couple of years since someone asked me about this video. And what they don't understand, you can't use this word in reference to a cow, for example. Cows don't ripen. This is like the word ripen in English. Just like you usually only say ripe for plants, right? In Hebrew, this word is only ever used for plants. Okay, so it's kind of so what they're trying to do. Oh yeah. It was it was the cow in the milk. That's what it was. And so so what they're saying is we have another word that sounds the same and is written the same, but has a different meaning. This happens a lot in Hebrew. It happens a lot in English too. Like there are 3 twos in the English language, right? To meaning the dative, like towards the like. I gave a gift to him. And then there's to, meaning the number 2, right? And then there's to, T-O-O, meaning also, right? And they all mean different things. They sound the same. Same thing with this. This word that they're looking at, they were looking at the word that means to boil, right? And so, but then they were interpreting it to mean to ripen, right? Like, you know, that like to become old enough that you could eat it, right? So just, yeah, wrong. I'm going to check the chat, see if anybody knew who that group was. Oh yeah, 119 Ministries. Thank you, Marivek. Yeah, that's right. 119 Ministries. Yeah, careful with those guys. They know enough Hebrew to be dangerous, but not enough to really know what they're talking about, you know. And they'll just attack the sages, and they, like I said, the spirit seems okay. Like they seem like a nice guy over there. It's just they shouldn't be teaching. They should be studying right now. So, okay, verse 11. V'chos paro biadi. And the cup of Pharaoh